runaway trains, and curves. What did it all mean? Well, in 2003, a Tangara train derailed on a curve near Waterfall. On the day of the accident, a Tanga International train service set G7 had come from Sydney Central Station at 6:24 a.m., departing Sydney Waterfall Station, moving south towards Port Kembla Station via Wollongong. At approximately 7:15 a.m., the driver suffered a sudden heart attack and lost control of the train. The train was travelling about 107 miles per hour and has approached the Waterfall curve. In the tracks for a small cutting, the curve was rated at a speed no greater than 60 miles per hour, and then disaster struck. The train derails, overturns, and collides with the rocky walls of a cutting in a remote area south of the station. It was reported that rescuers had to carry heavy lifting equipment, more than 15 kilograms, to reach the site. Two of the carriages landed on their sides, and the other two were severely damaged in the accident. In addition to the 7 fatalities, many more passengers were injured. A search into official quality discovered that dead man's brakes had been not applied. The train guards social and say that the guard was a micro-sleep for such as 30 seconds. Just part of the accident. The human factors accident investigators determined the original cause had the driver firmly in charge, making it possibly more difficult to guard the act. Tangara's trains had a number of safety and vital limitations, such as dead man's brakes, no address problems when the driver became decoupled. If the driver releases the pressure of the brakes, the train will safely come to a halt. The train in question was a 4-car outer suburban Tanga set numbered G7 filled with a measurable electric alternating current. A technical stem from innovational purposes. The driver was in the lead drive carriage in the rear carriage. In between which were two non-driving motor cars on the service. The guard who could have applied the emergency brake and the dead man's brakes were the main safety precautions in place. The train was later found to be traveling in excess of 117 miles per hour as it approached the 60 mile per hour curve where the accident occurred. Neither the dead man's brakes or the guards have investigated and determined the solution. And the exact speed found to be direct cause of the accident. During training to train staff were also found to be a conducting factor in the accident. Train G7 did not enter service. It was scrapped in 2005 due to the damage sustained in the accident. As well as all 4 cars were damaged beyond repair and scrapped. There were official findings of NSW Military of Transport investigation of the accident. A report of the accident Manager Commander Pete McClatchy was released in January 2004. It was reported that G7 was said to have been reported mechanical problems, possibly a half a dozen times, and have developed a report amongst mechanical operation branch, saying the problems were normal for the set in question. During the 6 months leading up to the accident, 3 reports of technical problems were made. The quality of a number of flaws in the dead man's handle, which was not applied in the accident, and leads to the dead man's panel. The dead weight of the conscious and overweight driver had suffered a heart attack, appeared to have enough to defeat the dead man's panel, which is 44% of Sydney's trains drivers. Alleged was suffocating mass. The design of the dead man's panel did not appear to be able to operate as intended. The driver makes a certain weight. Marks near the dead man's panel indicate some drivers were weight converting to sized red sanding forks to defeat the wet man's panel to prevent their legs from cramping in the poorly figured footwell and give themselves freedom to movement in the cabin. Some of the technical reports of the Tangaras generally include brake failures and reports power surgery problems after the accident. They were often blamed by some to be for being the cause of the accident. Many of the survivors actually mentioned a lot in the section before the accident occurred. Furthermore, there was an understanding that the emergency brake should have set on because the train would accelerate between 5 and 10 kilometers per hour and 62 miles per hour before the brakes came to effect. There was notice that the G710s were the only train in the Tangara fleet used phase 3 production motors, and these were not able to run away. Furthermore, the majority of braking and traction systems reported they're roughly examined and tested for by experts for Australia and overseas, and found to be working normally. Those damaged in the crash were examined and were also not found to be had per-examining damage to cause such an accident. Official findings into the accident blamed an undeveloped safety culture. There have been many criticisms of the way City Rail managed safety issues, resulting in the military of transport terms a race close to risk infringement. As the quality Paul Webb, Queensland, reported the guard on the train, said the guard was a microsleep at the time of the question, searched for as such a 30 seconds, which have removed the quantity of the guard to hold the train. Webb also possessed that there had been abilities that the driver was completely in charge of the train, and speeding was not the reason the guard slowed half the train, which have been controlling factors in the accident. Prior to this derailment, neither train nor purposely managed the guard to accelerate control over the speed of the train by using the emergency brake clock. Apart from the driver being subdued to the sole operator of the train, the emergency brake pipe clock does not approve the same degree of control over the automatic brakes as a proper brake valve. Considering among the train crews that a sudden emergency brake from the rear could cause a breakaway, which is in fact not impossible, as the clock does not apply the brakes solely to the rear car, but rather informally along the length of the train. There was some evidence that previous accidents available such as project. However, these were not involved in the modern multiple unit designs which the Tango are existing. Since the Roman, City Rail and operational procedures now promise the guard responsible to multi-man train speed, if necessary, open the emergency brake valve to stop the train. All Sydney and intercity and trains now have additional safety features, which had been since the accident. In addition to the dead man's handle and foot pedal, the trains are filled with tussling vengeance, which is a rare time the driver activates certain controls. If there was no in control, a flashing lamp, then a buzzer sound, and the driver is required to acknowledge a violent body. If the train driver does not use the controls and does not acknowledge that, the Vangan's Vangan system is activated, which makes the emergency brake harder. All trains are also filled with data logs to record the driver and guard's actions as they work the train as well as the train speed. Such systems have been built into G7, but the early stage of fleet rolled out has not been commissioned and switched on at the time of the accident. Rescue workers who attended the scene were impeded from increasing the trapped passengers on the train because they did not have the key required to open the emergency exit door. The emergency exit cameras were all been modified to allow them to use without a key. Railcorp has until the emergency doors released on mechanisms on all new trains. However, many passengers have found out the way since the train was broken into three pieces during the accident. City Rail completed emergency door releases on the side of the new Mora trains as a result of the quality of this disaster. Emphasizing passengers to open the doors themselves in case of an emergency, where recovery on the train was at standstill. The 2004 changes of rail workers were developed in response to the incident. Overseen by the National Transportation Conclusion Aspects by the Carnage assessments are missionary for certain and recertification with a past mastery checklist as part of the national standard in the U.S. of interest in public safety. The interest process of heel assessment areas were previously the heel assessments did not have an application risk but a clinical focus. It has been 22 years since the derailment, and hopefully we never see another train crash like this ever again.